Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Now, today I am joined by the beautiful Trieste Kelly Dunn. Tree, how you doing today?
Hi, thank you. I am very well. Thank you for asking.
Uh, I am so glad because this is something super huge to me because you are in a movie that I called the most underrated movie of 2019. But before we get there and before we talk about why you're here today, I want to talk a little bit about you so people that don't know you can get to know you a little bit. Tree studied theater at the North Carolina School of Arts. And in 2010, Filmmaker Magazine named her one of the 25 new faces of independent in their summer issue. Now, something like that, when you're considered a top 25 when you're coming out of school, what did that feel like for you to get that type of notoriety at that beginning of your career?
I guess I felt like hopefully it would lead to something really good. It's been hit or miss the whole way, though.
Oh, I in this type of business, from what I've learned, for every one yes you get at least 15 no's. So
more than 15 in my case, a lot more than 15.
I completely understand where you're coming from. But I mean, even the LA Times, they touted you as a breakout star based on your roles in the independent films Cold Weather and The New Year.
Oh, wow. Deep back there.
Well, I mean, I've been a big fan. And, like I said, you got United 93, Cold Weather, Vacation, back in 2010,
yeah.
which is
Wow.
super dope. And now one thing that I want to say, I have a very good friend of mine, my wife's best friend, a good friend of mine. Her name's Brandy. And we were watching my most underrated movie of 2019, The Girl on the Third Floor. I was showing it to Brandy because she had never seen it. And she was like, that's Allison. That's Detective Knight in the Blindspot.
Yeah.
Like, she totally knew, like, the minute that we seen you on the screen,
wow.
she totally knew right away. And I was like, yeah. And
wow, good eye.
well, it's these things where once you make an impact on somebody, and especially in a show like Blindspot, where you have so much anti-government and things like that, you really make a difference to some people. What was it like for you being on a show like Blindspot?
It was great because my friend Martin Garrow is the showrunner, and he's just such an amazing person to work for. He was so nice. It was just really nice. Everybody was nice and fun. I don't know. And I wasn't there all the time. So when you're like the lead of a show, like Jamie Alexander and Sullivan Stapleton were the leads, like they are working every day, all day, like 80 hours a week. Sure. So they get burnt out, they're doing that 9 months a year and they get like super burnt out. So I just come in and it's like a few episodes a year and it's just like, yay, I have a job and get to see all these people again and get to play a role that, that just keeps going. I mean, it's just fun to play a role for that many years too. That's the other thing that's nice, and see what they're going to write. And we got to shoot in some cool places in New York. It was in New York, in Brooklyn. So it was right next door. I mean, I remember walking to set on several occasions. That's happened to me a few times in New York, actually, where I like walked to the stage or walked to set. So that's always fun. I miss New York. I'm not in New York anymore. I'm in Utah. But yeah.
Quite a drastic change there.
Well, I was born in Utah. So I was already spending like 3 to 4 months a year in Utah whenever possible. But we used to do these, all of our auditions were in person, and like after COVID, I had my first in person, it was actually a screen test, and this was in April or March, and I flew to LA, and everybody there was like, yeah, this is the first time. Because I figured people that are in LA and New York are maybe going in a little bit more. They were like, no, this is the first one in like 3 years.
Wow.
You're in person. So it's all of a sudden you're like, holy shit, like we're in a room with people staring at us, like telling us what to do. Different vibe than doing it in your, tiny room, like on a computer screen. I mean, it's just so, I was like, we're never going back to that, I don't think. But obviously it was a screen test, so they they had to see us in person. I didn't get it. Really fucking depressed. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
Did I not say like F words on this?
Well, now I'm really fucking depressed.
I know. I was so sad. It was a good role. Anyway. But yeah, so we came to Utah after COVID because I was like, I'm not paying this rent if we're not auditioning in person. Right. And we're all working from home and doing Zooms all the time. It's just like, why? Like, that's not why you live in New York. you don't live in New York to like stay in your apartment all the time and do your auditions. Like you just, that's
Right.
not why you move there. So
Well,
yeah.
and you talk a little bit about, like the movie side of things and the TV show side of things, and how, a lot of people look at it and they're like, yeah, it's entertainment, but being on a TV show and being in a film are two completely different worlds when it comes to filming schedules, when it comes to things like that, because a lot of times, even on a TV show, you almost have to, live on set at times because of the amount of hours that you're putting in. So
Yeah.
in that aspect, would you rather be a part of like a sitcom, or like is a movie kind of more your thing?
TV, just because I love sinking into a role. I mean, it depends on the show. I'm sure you could be on like a terrible show that you hated.
Right.
But really for most actors, I'm not saying all actors, but I would say for most actors, it's like we just like working. It's
Right.
so even when you think you've gotten to a point where it's going to be a little bit easier, it still just reminds you that how hard it is. And it's sure there are those people out there that are overworking and they need a break. Like I remember going to set on Blindspot and everybody was so tired. And I was like, yeah, it's you're overworking or you're underworking. There's like not a lot of middle ground. So for me, TV is like, I love it because you get to come back. Like you have a job, it's steady. And it's also just fun to play the same role and not have to like, I think it's really hard to just show up. Like Girl on the Third Floor was so awesome. I loved doing it, but it was over in like 2 weeks. I was done. I
Right.
think I was there for 2.5, maybe 3 weeks, because like fittings and stuff, but I wasn't on set that long because most of my stuff happens kind of towards the end of the
Yeah,
movie.
you're a big part of the third act.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was sad when that was over. I was like, oh man, that was so great. You make all these friends and then you're done with it. And it was
Mhm.
just like the sort of longevity of a TV show can be just amazing for your
Yeah.
creativity and also just for having a job, getting a
Right.
steady paycheck.
Well, and you just brought up, what I wanted to. It's a perfect segue, because The Girl on the Third Floor is a movie that I feel is a criminally underrated movie, and I feel like a lot of people either love the movie or hate the movie because of your lead character, Phil Brooks. Better known as
Yes.
CM Punk from your WWE, AEW.
Yes.
And if you're not a big, CM Punk fan, you automatically hate this movie. If you're a huge CM Punk fan, you automatically love this movie.
Yeah.
I went to this movie with a complete open mind just because I'm a huge horror movie fan.
Right.
And yeah, I've never been a huge, I used to be a huge WWE fan. I've never been a huge CM Punk fan. But watching the movie, I was like, God, the kid can act. The guy's got some
Yeah.
chops. And
Yeah. He's
um,
lovely too. He's absolutely lovely.
yeah. And again, I'm saying CM Punk, but Phil Brooks, I
Yeah,
don't know
no,
the
but
guy.
I
I can't
know.
say I
I
dislike the
feel
guy.
like I might have called him CM Punk sometimes too.
The character of CM Punk was always like a pig-headed person to me, but Phil Brooks seems like a great guy. And to watch
Yes,
like
he
you
is.
guys in this film, and there's a very emotional moment. I don't want to say anything because I know it's a couple years old, guys, but if you haven't seen The Girl on the Third Floor, it is streaming on Amazon Prime right now at the time of filming. And you have a very emotional, gut-wrenching scream reaction to something that happens in this movie.
Stop! Stop!
And I'm watching this movie, and I'm watching you even when throughout the phone calls, and there's acting with your eyeballs, and there's, when you're acting through a cell phone and you're going through FaceTime and video chats, and
Right.
you have to still be there, and you're acting with your eyes, and you had this gut-wrenching scream that broke our hearts. We're watching this movie, and this is a movie that, yes, it's a horror movie first, but there's a lot of really deep social, you know, gosh, like messages throughout the movie and about things that
Yeah.
used to happen and how people
Yeah.
were treated. And what was it like for you to be a part of this movie that has such a deep social message, and and very, very empowering for females to watch this movie and realize that you could be more than what they were back then?
Well, gosh, I think we learned as we were going some of the history of that house. It was like shot in an actual
Yeah.
haunted house that apparently was a brothel, I think. And so
Hmm.
there were those stories. So it was, I think um the production company Dark Sky Media, is that, I'm like, God, this is horrible. It's been so long, but I'm like, I bet that is their name. um they wanted to have somebody write a story around that house and that history of that house, just loosely based on it. And all the neighbors knew of the ghosts in the house. Like all the neighbors were like, oh yeah, what's his name lived there. And he used to, apparently one of the guys that lived there set up a room upstairs in the house. And because one of the girls that had lived in the house was like, she was a young girl, like prostitute, I guess. And he set up a room. He got so familiar with like the spirits in the house. He set up a room and put doll houses in the room and like teacups. And he would like go hang out in this room with like, that's how, and he was like an ex-Navy SEAL. Like it wasn't the kind of person that's just like into ghosts, but
Right.
it just, everybody in the neighborhood was like talking about it. So Dark Sky, I guess, bought the house, wanted somebody to write a movie. Maybe a few people did, I don't remember, but Travis was the one, I think, that they liked that script the best. I think, I hope I'm not ruining this, but he wrote a story loosely based on that history. And yeah, I just thought it was just fascinating. I mean, I was scared to go in the house because I'm just scared in general of things like that. Like I'm not, like, a lot of people in my family grew up diehard horror movie fans. I'm just scared, like terrified. So like my cousin Devin, who lives here as well, she was like at 5 years old, she just isn't scared. And like her kid is the exact same. Like I can watch something and just be terrified. Like all the stuff happens to me that they want to happen. And like, even if I know it's fake, it still happens. So I was thinking like, shit, I'm going to be terrified. Like a ghost is going to like attach itself to me or something. And what I actually really liked about it was that it just demystified the whole thing. Cause we're on a set, it's a set, you know, it's not a haunted house. Like we're on a set with like a bunch of people, and yes, we're there at 3 a.m, but there's like 20 other people in the house. But there were a lot of stories, like art department who had to be there, I don't know, weeks before, I don't know how many weeks, like they were there alone. And they definitely had stories of like doors opening and closing on their own and like doorknobs rattling. They had a lot of stories.
And I'm a huge horror movie fan, but like real life stuff, I'm out. Like I don't do haunted houses, like even like fake haunted houses at Halloween. I don't like. I see you. Don't jump at me. We've made eye contact. You stay over there and you scare someone else. Like I just don't. I'm not into that. You know, true crime.
I'm not into that either. I was always terrified of that. Also, I know.
Yeah. I'm a huge wuss, and my wife hates it.
Yeah.
But in order of Tree, for you to be a part of horror movies, and like I said, this is a movie that I can't recommend enough, guys. It's a movie that has a very deep meaning. It's a horror movie first. It has great practical effects. You'll never look at marbles the same way again. I'll tell you that. And there are also parts that will genuinely make you laugh. The bartender, I think, is one of the great characters in the movie. When Phil and the other guy go to the bar and he's like, "Oh, is this the wife?" I literally laughed out loud. I was like, "Oh, that was a perfect little punchline." But you know, in order for you to be a part of this movie, and you know, in any horror movie in general, horror had to start for you somewhere. So now I would like to go back to the past and talk about what got you started in the horror genre, your first horror movie. And Tree, the first horror movie that you watched was
Nightmare on Elm Street. And I say that with like a frown because I think I'm still, I had nightmares about Freddy Krueger for probably until I was like 35.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, it wasn't that long.
You should wear a beanie.
I saw it. I was like,
I just wore this to be a part, you know, I just wanted to fit in a little bit.
No, but I was scared. I mean, I had nightmares in college. Like I was scared. Not that I was like thinking about it on day-to-day basis, but it was just, it stuck in my psyche. It was stuck in my psyche for a long time. And obviously as a kid, I was terrified. I couldn't even like see a picture of it. And my cousin, who we're close, like she knew this. And so she was always pulling that out.
Sure.
Oh, terrible. But it was that first thing. I don't know how old I was when I first saw it, but I just remember, I just so vividly remember being with a bunch of other kids watching that scene where like the claw comes up from the drain. Am I remembering this right? Like this is how I remember it, is a claw comes up from the drain and then like kills this girl in the bathtub because she's dreaming and it's just terrible. I just hate it.
Well, I mean, and this is a movie that has really affected a lot of people. I have a friend that still to this day will not sleep with sheets on his bed because of the scene with Jesus Garcia where where he's in the jail and the sheet wraps around his neck and hangs him. To this day, my friend still does not sleep with sheets on his bed because that scene scared him so bad. And he's not a horror movie guy. Like he's like, you know, I watched Nightmare on Elm Street when I was a kid, fucked me up. I'll never do anything like that again. I hate horror movies. And I think that's a great avenue of what horror does. Horror can either, to me, it's like a drug, and I don't condone drug use. Everybody, you know that. But for me personally, like that's, you know, I see that horror movie and I get scared. And then for me, I'm chasing that dragon. You know, I'm trying to get that next high. I'm trying to get that next scare. I want to see the next movie that's genuinely going to put that fear in me. And I think that it's so fun, but then other people, they get that scare and they're like, no, I'm good. We're good. We never have to do that again. So,
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
scene you're talking about is such a scary scene because you have Nancy and, you know, she's laying there and she's starting to fall asleep. And like you said, you see the glove come up between her legs and start to go towards her. And then she wakes up and the glove comes back down real quick, you know, and as I'm sure with you, you know, being a young lady at the time watching, you're watching another young lady in a bathtub going through something like this. And, you know, when are we any more vulnerable than when we're in the bathtub? You know, that's when we are at our most vulnerable.
True.
And, you know, just like with Psycho and the shower scene, you know, that's, you watch that and you have that fear of, oh my gosh, I'm naked and now someone's trying to attack me. So I'm trying to cover myself and protect myself. But I mean, I don't know what to do here. I'm completely vulnerable and I'm terrified. And especially this is a teenage girl in the movie. We forget a lot. A teenage girl.
That's right.
Having a nightmare in the bathtub, and you have Freddie coming up and taking her under the water, and you see her in almost an abyss of water. And again, what's more scary than the unknown? You're completely in a darkness. You were in your bathtub 8 seconds ago, and now you're in a bottomless pit of water. So I can only imagine.
Yeah.
And you said you had a bunch of friends. Was it like just like a bunch of family that was watching it together?
I feel like we were like sneaking. Like I wasn't supposed to watch stuff like that because I was probably, I don't know, how old would I have been? When did that come out? That one?
84.
Okay, but I was watching it. Obviously, I wasn't 3 because I was born in 81. So I was watching it a little older, I guess. I think I was probably with a bunch of like maybe slightly older kids. Maybe they were babysitting me.
Right.
And
Hey, we got something
same thing
hilarious.
happened with Jaws, I think. Same thing happened with Jaws, where I was like 5 and I was not supposed, my dad was mad at whoever showed it because that scared me too. I mean, obviously everybody is a little bit scared of sharks from that movie, which is unfortunate. But the Freddy thing, it was like the concept of not being able to go to sleep. Like whoever thought of that is really messed up.
Oh, Mr. Wes Craven. And that's the thing, you know, you think about, you know, Michael Myers, I can hide from him. Jason Voorhees, I'm sure I can find a place to hide. I can't not sleep.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't know if you've seen it, but well, we'll get to that in a minute because that's a question I ask anyway. But was the scene with Nancy in the bathtub, was that the one that affected you the most from Nightmare?
That's the one I remember that, like, I just remember it. I just remember that. No, and it probably wasn't. Probably at the time there were much scarier scenes. But I just remember that was my first introduction to horror. That was it. It was like knifey hands, and that image was just so powerful. And I just remember watching it like just gasping and going, I'm probably not supposed to watch this. Like maybe it's gonna be bad. And it was for years. Like I couldn't go downstairs, and that's where my bedroom was, downstairs, like in this dark basement. And I was like terrified to go down there and terrified to fall asleep.
Well, I know that, you know, you probably, you know, with the way we're talking about Nightmare, it's a movie. I've always said this. I feel like A Nightmare on Elm Street is the closest thing to a perfect horror movie that you can get. If you take out the ending, the stupid blow up doll mom getting pulled back in through the window, and then the dumb fucking Freddy car driving away. If you take that out of this film, it's perfect. This is the perfect horror film. And
I need to watch it again. Now I want to watch it again as an adult and just see if I can handle it. I think I can handle it.
and the reason I'm saying that is horror movies don't have to have a bunch of death and a bunch of kills to really, you know, affect people. And in A Nightmare on Elm Street, there's really only 4 kills throughout the whole film. You have Johnny Depp getting dragged into the waterbed.
Right.
You have Rod
Oh yeah, I do remember that.
My
mom had a waterbed.
Yes. Then you have Tina getting dragged up the wall, you know, with invisible Freddy, and you have the mom at the end. Now, like I said, there's not very many deaths, but every single death in this movie is huge and impactful. Now, do you remember which death it was that affected young Tree the most?
I mean, I definitely, when you brought up the waterbed, I remember it because my mom had a waterbed. Doesn't like stick in my head though, whichever one. It was weird. It was just him, like Freddy just scared me. Like the stupid knife, like the hands, like all that stuff. Just that's what I was scared of. And I don't remember the specific scenes. I just remember like knowing I shouldn't have watched that movie. And then every time I was at my cousin's house, she was like, turned it on. You know, she was just trying to always like scare me a little bit. And she thought it was so funny. And she could watch a horror movie and just laugh. Like she didn't get scared.
And
To
the
this
thing
day,
is, when it comes to horror movies like this too, especially at a young age, we also connect dots that aren't there because our imagination is running wild and our brains haven't fully developed yet. I remember the Texas Chainsaw Massacre being a super bloody, super graphic horror movie. And then when I started doing this, I rewatched it, and there's really not very much blood and guts throughout that movie. It's definitely more of an art film than a slasher. And the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise is huge, obviously, and they just did a remake in 2010, a Nightmare on Elm Street, the remake with Jackie Earle Haley, doing the role of Freddy Krueger. Did you see the Nightmare on Elm Street remake?
I did not see it. Did
Well,
you?
I did, and
You're like, obviously.
I hated it when I first seen it because it wasn't Robert Englund playing Freddy. But I love Jackie Earle Haley in this movie. And the biggest complaint I get from a lot of people is, yeah, I watched it and I don't like it because I hate Freddy in the movie. He's gross and he's sick and he's supposed to be. He's the killer. Like, we're not
Yeah.
supposed to like him. He's
Yeah.
he's a child killer. We're supposed to hate him, and he did the job. But what I love about the remake, something that I think is just so fucking brilliant, is they incorporated the idea of micro naps. And what that is, it's a real thing where if you stay awake for too long, your brain starts to shut down and goes to sleep on its own and creates these micro naps. So you could take all the caffeine and they're shooting up adrenaline to stay awake, but they're still going through micro naps. And there's this scene in the movie that is so great. It has Nancy, and she's in a pharmacy, and her brain is shutting down, and she's going back and forth between dreams and real, and she's seeing Freddy in the pharmacy, but he's also in the boiler room, and he's knocking stuff off the shelves, and he's coming at her. And what we were talking about earlier is, how can you escape your dreams? Eventually you have to go to sleep. And like I said, even if you're shooting yourself up with adrenaline, even if you're drinking cups of coffee or you're taking speed shot, pills or whatever, your brain is eventually going to go, yo, no, we're done here. And it's going to start shutting down on its own and creating these micro naps. So you can't drive off. You can't fly in a plane away from your nightmares, away from your dreams. And I think as children, that's why Freddy scared us so much, because we don't have an escape from him. So we're laying in bed going, oh, fuck, I don't want to go to sleep. This guy sucks. I don't want to be around him at all. So, have you watched any of the other films in the Nightmare series, or was it kind of like
I'm
I watched
sure
part
I
one?
have, because I feel like I would kind of sneak and like test the waters. It's that thing with horror, it's like you want to be afraid. It's like going on a roller coaster, you're screaming your head off, but like you still want to do it. So I think I would kind of like dip my toes in every once in a while, probably with my cousin and her dad. At the time, he worked at a movie theater. So like they were just huge horror fans. So they just always had something on. So I feel like I would kind of just peek and watch 20 minutes and then cut myself off.
Well, I'll tell you this, your cousin,
actually
I think I love her to death.
My cousin, oh, you would totally love her. She is, and you know what's so funny? Her daughter was born on Halloween.
Yes, you can't make that. You can't write that.
And her daughter's obsessed with, of course she's obsessed with Halloween because it's her birthday, but like she also has that same thing where she thinks like the weird evil clowns and stuff are like cute. Like she's not afraid of them. And I was just such a pussy as a kid. I was the biggest pussy. I just couldn't even, I just couldn't do it. My dad's the same way. He's the same way. Yeah, so I just don't really see a lot of horror movies. I just don't see them for that reason still. It's just I'm not in a habit of seeing them because I'm actually afraid. But I did see, what did I see recently? Well, not recently, like in the last few years that had a similar effect was Hereditary.
Oh.
That had a similar effect of just like, like that was like deep. I was like, oh, like this is wrong. Like this, it made me just feel like scared in that same way that I felt when I first saw Nightmare on Elm Street, where I was like afraid of the bedroom.
Yeah.
And I was like telling my partner, I was like, please just go into the bathroom first and like turn the light on. I did that because we were in a cabin in the woods and it was very kind of similar vibe. And we watched it together and I was just like, I don't dare go in the bathroom like alone right now. That's
right.
It was. But there was just something about it, like the family thing, like there was just so much creepy stuff that just got into my psyche, like in a deep place and just stayed there for like days where it just, I could taste it, and then now it's kind of like, but it's also just amazing film. I mean, there's so much to love about that film. Like the acting everything's incredible. So I need to see more. But like, I don't know what do you recommend? What should I see? Like, what do I have to see?
Everybody watching this that knows me knows exactly what I'm going to say right now. There's a film. It came out in 2020. It is called The Dark and the Wicked.
Yes, I've heard of that. Of course. Why haven't I seen that? That's obvious.
I'm telling you, like, I'm 37 years old. I thought I was desensitized to horror. I thought nothing could ever scare me. Me and my wife were watching The Dark and the Wicked at like 2:30 in the afternoon. And I was like, baby, if you want to open the blinds a little bit, that's fine. I'm cool with that. The movie genuinely scared me. And what I love about this movie is it's heightened anxiety. Like you have these tense moments, but there's no break. There's no jump scare to break the tension. And Brian Bertino, the guy that directed it, he also did The Strangers, which is another film that I really, really like. And I got little emo goosebumps right now. But it's just one of those films that, like, when I watched it, I'm sitting there and I'm like literally on the edge of my seat, and I'm like, why? How is this movie affecting me so bad? And I always got to put the caveat in there, the asterisk. I watched this movie shortly after the passing of my mother, so that could have a lot to do with why it was affecting me so much. But still, to this day, when I watch it, it gives me the heebie-jeebies. It really, really scared me a lot. So I can't recommend The Dark and the Wicked
I need to
enough.
see it because a friend of mine, Mike Abbott, is in it. When you said it, I was like, why is it so familiar?
Mm-hmm.
And
he did a great job.
It's because I'm like, I should have seen it and I didn't. And he's my friend and I should have seen it, but I probably thought it looked too scary. So
yeah, Mike did a great job in that movie. It's funny because like me and him are like Twitter friends now, and I get all excited when me and him talk on Twitter. I'm like, oh, this is the coolest shit in the world.
He also went to NCSA. We went to the same school. That's how we met.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I mean, I know you're not a huge horror fan, Tree, but we talked about your first horror movie being Nightmare on Elm Street, and now my little buddy Ghostface is here, and he has a question for you.
Okay.
What's your favorite scary movie, Tree? What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
I would probably Hereditary.
Mm-hmm. That's a great choice.
So much, and also just the family stuff was just, I don't know, got into me. It got under my skin.
And also, I don't want to say
Ghostface. I'm like, oh yeah, Scream. I watched Scream. That was one of those horror movies I watched a million times. Like all those like Kevin Williamson horror movies. I watched those a lot.
Yeah,
I watched those a lot.
I don't want to say the scene just for people that haven't seen Hereditary. I really think it's a scene that you need to go into blind and not see. But Ashley and I were lucky to go see a screener of Hereditary, and we had no spoilers whatsoever. And we're in there watching, and the scene happened. And it's still to this day the craziest movie theater experience I've ever had, because you could literally feel everybody in the theater go, oh, when that scene happened in Hereditary. And I'm like, there's no way this just happened. Like, what are we watching? Like, how did this happen? And like, I got to meet Millie Shapiro at a con recently.
Oh, wow.
And she was like, the only bummer was they wouldn't let me keep the head. Like, she wanted to keep the prosthetic head, and they were
really,
keep it. Yeah. And I'm just like, damn. Like, and I'm that moment though. I'm just like, what, where, why, how did this happen? So I agree with you. I think Hereditary, and it's not just the fact that it's a horror movie. Something I've always said is a horror movie is at its best when it's a drama wrapped in a horror movie. And that's exactly Hereditary. It's a family movie, like you were just talking about. That dinner scene alone is some of the best acting I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah.
When Toni Collette and her son are going back and forth, and the dad's just trying to be the peacekeeper, and just you wipe that face off your little face, and like it's just like, oh my god, like, oh, it's her gut-wrenching screams and cries, and the piano wire is just, oh, it's such a fantastic, scary movie.
Well, I know, and it's interesting that you say that as somebody who really is such a fan of horror movies. But I talked to people who didn't think it was scary, maybe because I don't know, or they're just, well, you have to kind of, I mean, it's creepy throughout, and then it's like the kind of, I guess if you call it gore, like kind of comes towards I don't know. I mean, it just, as somebody who isn't like immersed in the genre, I found it terrifying. But I talked to other people who are like, no, we didn't love it. And I was like, really?
I personally am, and it's funny because my wife, the total opposite of me. I'm not a huge gore person. Like, that's not me. Like, I'm not a huge fan of the torture porn, as they call it. Right. For me, I'm more of like, I want a good drama. I want to feel something along with the horror. That's why movies like Hereditary, The Dark and the Wicked, you get a lot of familial stuff. You get a lot of feelings throughout the movie.
I haven't seen it yet.
One of my top 10 favorite movies of all time, and people laugh at me when I say this isn't me being funny, this is me being genuine and serious, is The Notebook. I think The Notebook is one of the best written movies I've ever seen in my life. For me and my wife's 15-year anniversary, I rented out a movie theater and we went and watched The Notebook, just her and I in the theater.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so cute. What a
Oh,
sweet
it's
thing to do for your
I
anniversary.
love that movie. And it's funny, people are like, oh, your wife. I showed my wife that movie. Like, I was like, you got to watch this movie. And I love a movie that gives me a feeling in my chest, whether it's fear or love or comedy or, dread. And when you can add those things together, just like a horror comedy, I think a good horror comedy is one of the best things in the world because
Mm,
horror is all about timing. If you don't have the right timing, you're not going to scare people.
right.
Comedy is all about timing. If you don't have the right timing, people aren't going to laugh. So when you combine those two things and you have that perfect mix of horror and comedy with the right timing, it can be one of the best. Shaun of the Dead is probably one of my favorite films of all time. I think it's
Yeah.
hilarious. I think it's scary. I sob like a baby every time I watch it and the mom dies. Like, I think it's one of the best movies. But we're not here to talk about me, Tree. We are here to talk about you. So what I want to do real quick before I let you go, I want to bounce back to A Nightmare on Elm Street. And what we're
Okay.
going to do here is we're going to rank this movie on a skull count. Now, Tree, we're not ranking Nightmare on Elm Street on acting, production, score, direction. We're not being critics. What we're doing here is, I think I know the answer. That's why I'm laughing. We're going to rank A Nightmare on Elm Street on how much it affected you on your first viewing. So 0 skulls being not effective, 5 being extremely effective. You can use half and quarter skulls anywhere in the middle. A Tree, what would your ranking of A Nightmare on Elm Street be?
Oh, 5+ for sure.
See, that's why I was laughing. I knew what the answer was, but just the way that you're describing the fear that you got. And it's amazing to me because that's what I love about doing this is
Yeah.
learning all the things that we all find. Like I said, we grew up so far away and so different, but we grew up the same with these movies and the feelings that we felt when we were watching them. And what's amazing about technology now is I can talk to you about this type of thing. When we were kids, we didn't have this avenue of being able to talk to other people about how scary these
Sure.
movies are that we're watching. And so
Right.
to learn how this started for you is super, super special to me. Now, guys, we are at the end of the third act. The credits are about to roll and the curtain is about to drop. But before that happens, I have all of Tree's social media links in the description. So you don't want to miss out on the things that she has coming up. And the best way that you can do that is by following her on social media. So you can stay up to date on all the things that she's going to be working on in the future and check out some of the things that she's done in the past. If you've never seen a girl on the third floor, I seriously cannot recommend it enough. And like I said, Brandy, a good friend of mine, she is a huge fan of Blindspot. So if you guys haven't checked that out, me and her, we're going to be binging it. Like when we watched A Girl on the Third Floor, she was like, yo, the Blind Spot. She's from the Blind Spot. And I'm sorry, not the Blind Spot, from Blindspot, the TV show. And I was like, well, let's check it out. Let's watch it. She started to explain to me what it was. And I was like, oh, I'm in. I'm totally in. Let's watch it. So all these things that she's done, you could check out and you can stay up to date with the things she's doing in the future by clicking the links in the description and following her on social media. So Tree, please don't go anywhere. I got a couple more questions for you. Everybody else, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. It really does help the channel more than you know. And follow Sledgehammer Horror on social media. All our links are down in the description. And until next time, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.